What Bill Gates allegedly did is shocking. Bill Gates is finally on camera addressing some of the most disturbing allegations to come out of the Epstein document dump, including claims from Epstein's personal notes alleging that Gates did something awful to Melinda without her knowledge. His response is wild. When the latest batch of Epstein files dropped, Bill Gates' name was all over them. We're not talking about flight logs or party guest lists. We're talking about deeply personal allegations contained in emails that Epstein apparently wrote to himself. It's kind of weird. So here's a brief timeline. 2011, Gates first met Epstein. 2011 to 2014, Gates acknowledges having multiple dinners with Epstein over roughly 3 years. In 2019, Epstein dies in custody. But in these recent weeks, latest Epstein files were released containing allegations about Gates. And at the start of this week, Melinda spoke on NPR about painful memories from her marriage. And today, Bill Gates sits in for an interview with 9 News Australia to respond. This is his first appearance responding to exactly what happened. We're gonna break down exactly what Melinda and Bill said and what he's denying in a moment. But if you wanna stay on top of this story, hit subscribe. This one's not going away anytime soon. According to these documents, Epstein wrote notes to himself, claiming Gates contracted an STD and referencing, in Epstein's own words, quote, consequences of sex with Russian girls. Even more disturbing, the alleged note says Gates asked Epstein to obtain antibiotics that he could secretly give to Melinda, supposedly to treat her without realizing she'd been exposed to something. These are extraordinary accusations. Gates didn't immediately respond publicly while the documents circulated online. His ex-wife Melinda recently spoke publicly about how painful these revelations have been for her. Take a look.
No girl. I mean, it's beyond heartbreaking, right? I remember being those ages those girls were. I remember my daughters being those ages, right? So for me, it's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage, but I have moved on from that.
Gates is addressing it head on in an interview with Australian television. Speaking with 9 News Australia, Bill Gates directly addressed the emails. He acknowledged that Epstein apparently composed these messages, but pointed out they were never actually transmitted to anyone. Gates flatly denied the contents, calling them untrue. When pressed on why Epstein would fabricate something like this, Gates said he couldn't explain the man's thinking. But what were in those emails? Gates provided his version of how he came to know Epstein. According to Gates, they first crossed paths in 2011. Over the next 3 years, they shared several meals together. According to Gates, these meetings had a charitable purpose. Epstein positioned himself as a connector, someone who could leverage his relationships with billionaires to generate donations for global health. Whether that was ever Epstein's real agenda is another question entirely. What many have speculated is that he was actively trying to rehabilitate his image around this time. In 2019, he sat down with Steve Bannon for an interview that many believe was intended as a puff piece to soften his public image. In it, he plays up his role as a philanthropist. Here's the clip.
You earned it advising the worst people in the world, right, that do enormous bad things, and just to make more money.
So instead of asking me the question, should you take the money? Because I think it's a legitimate question.
You think it's a legitimate question?
Yes, no
Why?
question. Because I think about, I think ethics is always a complicated subject, but I can tell you that with the money I gave to help try to eradicate polio in Pakistan and India, instead of asking me whether that money should be given to these children for vaccines, I think you might want to ask their mothers who received the vaccine, who know their child now won't get polio, and ask them if Epstein should have helped these people with their money.
If we walked in,
Looking back, Gates called that pursuit a dead end. He acknowledged that spending any time with Epstein was a mistake, and he said he's one of the countless people who wish they'd never crossed paths with him. Gates was emphatic about the boundaries of his interactions with Epstein. He told 9 News Australia that his involvement was limited to dinner meetings. He said he's never traveled to Epstein's private island. He said he's never encountered any of the women associated with Epstein's crimes. His position is that as more information becomes public, it will only reinforce that while associating with Epstein was an error in judgment, it had no connection to the illegal conduct Epstein was engaged in. The connection between Gates and Epstein has been a subject of public discussion for years now. When asked if the constant speculation bothers him, Gates indicated indicated it hasn't gotten under his skin. He suggested that people in positions of power and wealth should expect intense examination, and that he welcomes people looking closely at the available evidence. While Gates appears relatively composed about the situation, his former wife seems to have experienced it differently. In a recent appearance on NPR's podcast, hosted by Rachel Martin, Melinda acknowledged that certain details in the released documents triggered difficult memories from her marriage.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life. And I hope there's some justice for those now women, right? We see them standing up in front of microphones in D.C. What they went through is just unimaginable, I think.
Prior to this interview, a representative for Gates had already issued a strong denial through TMZ. The spokesperson called the allegations absurd and entirely false. Their position is that the documents actually reveal Epstein's frustration that he couldn't maintain an ongoing relationship with Gates, and demonstrates how far Epstein was willing to go to ensnare and damage people's reputation. I encourage you guys to go check out these emails for yourselves and drop your take in the comments. We'd love to see what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.